right? So what America cares about right now is that they want to make sure that they can duplicate these capabilities to fabricate the latest chips in America, if anything happens, right? And this is part of what the CHIPS Act was. And that's all I think there are some good things that came out of the CHIPS Act that, now there is hundreds of billions of dollars actually that are being put into domestic manufacturing for semiconductors. I was with Intel and IBM, and we were at the time the global dominant player in semiconductors. But over the last 20, 30 years, we've lost that. We've given it away, right? Now, if China actually does attack Taiwan, they will not get these fabs, and they realize that, right? And if you go there, fabs by themselves require materials from all over the world, requires maintenance, requires chemicals, requires supplies, and if they did that, even if they don't blow up, even if the U.S. doesn't blow up the data centers or the Taiwanese don't sabotage their own system.
大家好，这里是华人看世界 CNView 频道。本期我们关注一场可能影响全球未来的深度对话。中美 AI 竞赛究竟是一场必须分出胜负的军备竞赛，还是一场需要彼此协调、共同获益的猎鹿博弈？节目中来自中美两国科技产业一线的专家将拆解 ASII 和 AGI 的真实时间线，解释中国为何大力推动开源模型，以及出口管制是否反而加速了中国芯片和 AI 生态的自主发展。与此同时，美国正在疯狂建设数据中心，背后却可能隐藏着私人信贷泡沫、过度投资和经济回调的风险。当 AI 模型越来越强，真正危险的究竟是参数规模庞大的巨型模型，还是能够自我改进、低门槛扩散的小型模型？从机器人、就业和产业转型，到即将展开的中美人工智能安全对话，再到台湾、台积电与全球供应链，这场讨论不仅关乎科技，也关乎国家治理、经济未来，甚至整个人类社会的走向。接下来，让我们一起看看两个大国究竟是在争夺未来，还是正在共同走向一个无法承受的风险。
US v China. And it would seem to me one of the cruxes at the summit and otherwise is Taiwan and TSMC. And I'd love, Alvin, your perspective. How does this end? Does this end in your geopolitical analysis? Does this end with China attempting during this geopolitical and demographic window to invade Taiwan and seize TSMC to gain leading foundry node capacity? Does it end with Taiwan retaining its independence and TSMC not having to blow up all of its fabs? Where does this end?
So I think there is an assumption right now that some people in DC are saying, hey, the reason that China wants to invade Taiwan is to get access to these fabs, and they don't have these fabs, and so this is why they're going to go and attack the island. The reality is that if anybody attacks the island, there is nothing there to be had in terms of workable fabs. Right. So I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but I was having
that means you definitely should be talking about it.
I was having breakfast with the CTO for TSMC and also a former senior official from the CIA, and the TSMC guy goes, hey, I heard that you guys are going to blow up our data centers if China attacks. Is that true? And the CIA guy says, hey, I can neither confirm nor deny that. But what we do have is we have 1,000 engineers of yours that we know we will fly out before anything happens, right? So what America cares about right now is that they want to make sure that they can duplicate these capabilities to fabricate the latest chips in America, if anything happens, right? And this is part of what the CHIPS Act was. And that's all I think there are some good things that came out of the CHIPS Act that, now there is hundreds of billions of dollars actually that are being put into domestic manufacturing for semiconductors. I was with Intel and IBM, and we were at the time the global dominant player in semiconductors. But over the last 20, 30 years, we've lost that. We've given it away, right? Now, if China actually does attack Taiwan, they will not get these fabs, and they realize that, right? And if you go there, fabs by themselves require materials from all over the world, requires maintenance, requires chemicals, requires supplies. And if they did that, even if they don't blow up, even if the U.S. doesn't blow up the data centers or the Taiwanese don't sabotage their own systems, after a little while you run out of these supplies. Right? They realize that. The reason China cares about Taiwan is not because of the fabs. It is absolutely because of a political history, and you know this, right?
Yes.
Essentially, in 1949, the movement of the Taiwanese, the Nationalist Party to Taiwan, and that to them is a uncompleted civil war, and the two countries actually right now is recognized by America, including 190 other countries, as being one country. Right, so this is kind of like Hawaii and the U.S. or maybe Puerto Rico and the U.S. Right, they're kind of pseudo part of a one national structure, right? And it is more of a political and to them a civilizational ending to a long story. That's the main focus, and they've multiple times ever since essentially Deng Xiaoping to now have talked about peaceful reunification. Right. So I don't think there is a interest or a rush to do any near-term attacks to try to get Taiwan because of chips. I just don't see that.
So you don't think like there's like a just quick question then over. You don't think there's like a backroom discussion somewhere maybe in connection with the summit? Okay, give the U.S. maybe 2 to 3 more years to migrate leading edge node fab capabilities to Arizona or otherwise redomesticate TSMC's capabilities, and then China, okay, fine, you can retake Taiwan because we don't care anymore.
So I don't know if you had a chance to read my paper, the Great Reckoning and the Reconnecting, but it talks about Taiwan in some aspect to say, hey, just like during the 2008 great financial crisis, actually China helped out the U.S. a lot in terms of keeping the financial stability. I don't know how much you guys know about the history there, but essentially, if China actually started to sell T-bills versus buying, it could have completely destabilized the American financial system, right? And they kept buying at trillions of dollars, which helped to keep interest rates down and so forth. We potentially might have a repeat of this situation if there's a correction in the market due to what's happening right now with the overbuild and the over leverage of the AI sector. Right, and maybe at that point, the Americans or maybe Trump will give a call to Xi and say, "Hey, can you help us out again?" And maybe I'll just be more hands off or be more clear instead of the ambiguity issue. And this is me completely speculating.
Wow, this is your war game. Just for clarity, what I hear you saying in your war game is sometime in the next 2 years, there's a private credit bubble that the U.S. is using to finance its data center build out. The bubble, assuming it exists, pops, and then the U.S. asks China to help financially in return for what, a quid pro quo regarding Taiwan?
Well, not in the sense of here's Taiwan, but to say, hey, as long as you agree to some kind of a peaceful thing and over a mutually agreed term, that we're going to stay out of it, right? Because we've been very involved in the kind of Chinese political or the Taiwanese political sphere for a long time. We've been selling weapons to them for the last 40 or 50 years, right? And at one point we used to have soldiers based in Taiwan. We still have advisors right now, military advisors based in Taiwan. Right. So this is like saying if Chinese were selling weapons to Puerto Rico and they were helping fund them, what would America do? And look at what happened in Cuba, and how we responded. Right. So I think we need to be sensitive to why this is an issue for the Chinese. And I'm not apologizing for them. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but I think it's important for in any negotiation discussion to understand the other side.
There's important for everybody to understand that the U.S. policy towards China, Taiwan is a one China policy, explicitly.
I should just add, maybe fine point, the Uyghurs, ethnic Muslims, ethnic Turks may differ with that assessment regarding ethnic homogeneity and the unity of approach, sort of everyone's Han type characterization of China, for the record.
Nice at 95%, right? And so I think there are definitely a few percent, but it is a relatively minority, right? And even the Uyghurs or whoever, they all speak Chinese, they all read Chinese, so there is a common language, and I think that the desire to succeed is not as prevalent as we tend to portray it in U.S. press. So
we'll have to save that for next time, I guess.
Yes, let's save that for next time. I'll say one thing. I spent a few months traveling around China, and my conclusion was the native entrepreneurship in the Chinese people is higher than any other country I've ever seen, just latently. And therefore, if we believe entrepreneurship is a major driver for future success for the world, that's an amazing thing, and I think we're seeing that come out of it.
I do want to end with one thing. Is
go ahead.
I think for America to actually be successful in this industry and take advantage of what we've created, is actually to think about creating something that's akin to a AI Marshall Plan. Right. So the Marshall Plan post World War II, we spent around I think $15 to $18 billion rebuilding much of Europe and some parts of Asia, and that created created
markets for our goods also.
Created giant markets for our goods because at that time we had 50% of the manufacturing, and it created loyalty and allies for 8 decades. Right. We need to be thinking more about that type of thing today, but with AI data centers, with AI technology, the same thing that what China is actually doing right now. Their WACO, the AI Cooperation Organization, essentially is their AI Marshall Plan. We should be either doing something like that, or we should be working with them to do it together. Right.
That's great advice.
Yeah. If we did that, we would have a big market to sell our chips. When we stop building data.
这期节目真正讨论的表面上是中美人工智能竞赛，实际上却是在追问一个更根本的问题：当一项技术足以改变经济、社会甚至国家秩序时，人类究竟应该选择竞速还是选择合作？从节目中的大量信息可以看出，中美对人工智能的理解存在着明显差异。美国更关注谁能率先训练出最强势的模型，谁能掌握通往 A 级乃至 ACI 的钥匙，而中国更重视人工智能如何进入工厂、医院、学校、能源系统和日常生活，如何通过所谓的人工智能加推动产业升级，一个更关注模型的极限，一个更关注技术的普及，一个在追逐终点线，一个在争取眼前能够落地的实际收益。问题也正出在这里。人工智能竞赛一旦被包装成一场非赢即输的零和博弈，所有政策都会被安全焦虑和国家对立牵着走。为了领先几个月，投入巨额资本，建设远超实际需求的数据中心，为了阻止对手发展，实施晶片、软件和设备限制，为了证明自己没有落后，不断加码基础设施和军备式投资。可是人工智能并不像登月那样存在一个清晰的终点，今天的领先可能很快被开源模型追上，所谓最强模型也可能在新的算法、能源体系和应用生态面前迅速商品化。节目里提到的猎鹿博弈恰好点出了当前困局，中美两国如果把对方视为必然背叛者，就只能不断提前行动，最终陷入互相防范、互相加码的囚徒困境。但人工智能不是一场只进行一次的游戏，更不是谁赢谁输就结束的战争，它会进入每一个国家、每一家企业和每一个人的生活。一个国家的金融系统、电网、医疗系统或社会秩序一旦遭到严重破坏，受影响的不会只是对手，整个世界都会付出代价。因此，真正理性的选择不是放弃竞争，而是改变竞争的方式。双方可以在应用、产业和商业模式上继续较量。但在人工智能安全、模型测试、网络防御、生物风险和失控预警等问题上，必须建立最低限度的沟通机制。 尤其要警惕那些被忽视的小型模型，模型参数规模并不能直接决定现实风险，一个能力有限、成本低廉、可以被复制和部署到全球各地的模型，同样可能被恶意组织用于网络攻击、生物化学实验或自动化犯罪。真正危险的往往不是实验室里最庞大的模型，而是那些已经流入现实世界却缺乏监管、缺乏追踪、缺乏责任主体的系统。节目还反复强调了开源模型的意义。开源并不只是技术路线，更是一种生态竞争。美国拥有强大的模型、芯片和资本，中国则在资源受限的环境下，通过算法优化、能源建设和开放权重模型寻找突破口。出口管制确实可能在短期内限制芯片供应，却也可能反过来刺激替代产业，迫使对手建立自己的技术体系。更重要的是，模型训练本身可以跨越国界，算力、数据和人才会通过各种方式流动。想用一道禁令永久锁住技术扩散，越来越不现实。这对所有国家都提出了一个提醒：真正的竞争力不只是拥有某一个最强模型，而是拥有完整、稳定、开放且能够持续创新的生态系统。这里面包括芯片制造、能源供应、数据中心、软件工具、教育体系、制造能力、资本市场，以及能够让普通人真正受益的应用场景。如果技术只停留在少数公司的估值和股价里，却没有提高生产率、改善医疗、创造新的就业机会，那么在宏大的投资也可能只是建立在信贷和预期之上的脆弱繁荣。尤其值得警惕的是，人工智能可能首先冲击的正是美国最擅长的金融、咨询、法律和信息服务行业。白领工作并不会因为社会需要而自动保留，许多初级岗位已经可以由少数资深员工配合 AI 完成。与此同时，中国也面临青年就业、人口老龄化、房地产调整和劳动力重新分配等压力。机器人可以填补劳动力缺口，却不能自动解决收入分配、职业转型和社会尊严问题。技术进步如果没有配套的教育、保障和再就业机制，就可能带来生产率的提升，却同时制造更深的不平等。所以，人工智能时代最重要的任务不是简单的问谁会赢，而是要问谁能够让更多人共享技术红利，谁能够在效率提升的同时保护普通人的安全感，谁能够接受短期阵痛，避免把泡沫和债务推向更大的危机，谁能够承认自身政策可能犯错并及时调整方向。节目最后谈到台湾、台积电以及中美关系，也让我们看到科技议题从来不会孤立存在。芯片、能源、制造业、金融市场和地缘政治早已相互缠绕，任何一方都不应该把对手的焦虑误读成野心，也不应该把自己的恐惧变成对外政策。真正成熟的外交不是要求对方先投降，而是理解对方为什么不安，并在共同利益上建立可以持续的合作。未来的世界可能不会由某一家企业、某一个国家或者某一种制度单独定义。超级智能如果真的到来，它最终考验的不是机器有多聪明，而是人类能否设计出配得上这种力量的制度。我们需要的不是让人工智能替我们做出所有决定，而是让它帮助人类减少贫困、改善健康、提高生产力，同时避免权力和财富集中到少数机构手里。这场竞赛没有真正的终点，但每一个当下的选择都会塑造未来。是继续把世界推向互相封锁、资本过热和安全失控，还是把竞争转化为合作，把技术转化为公共能力，把人工智能变成全人类共同受益的工具？答案并不只掌握在政府和科技巨头手里，也掌握在每一个关注这场变革的人手中。你认为中美人工智能竞争最应该优先解决的是芯片和算力问题、就业与社会转型问题，还是人工智能安全与国际合作问题？欢迎把你的看法写在评论区，也欢迎点赞、订阅、观看更多精彩视频。